Welcome to Untold Physio Stories podcast, your perfect commute resource with physio failures, successes, interesting cases, and more from the physio and rehab world, with your hosts, Drs. Andrew Rothschild and Erson Religioso. Topical analgesics help patients alleviate pain and reduce discomfort. I recommend and use Helix professional pain relief creams with my patients. Helix has 3 new creams they've added to their line of topical analgesics. Joining their pain relieving cream is Triactive Therapy Cream, CBD Therapy, and CBD Clinical Creams. My patients have been raving about these creams, and that's why I'm offering you an opportunity to try these in your practice. Email my exclusive promo code MMT2 to Helix at helix4, pain.com to receive samples of these new professional pain relief creams and find a medical supply distributor near you. You'll get a starter kit with several samples, patient information brochures, and it's a great way to help patients and grow your practice. Welcome back to Untold Physio Stories. I'm one of your hosts, Dr. E, with Modern Manual Therapy, Edge Mobility System, and Modern Rehab Mastery, our live online 4-month mentoring program. My co-host is
Dr. Andrew Rothschild with Modern Patient Education.
All right. Well, I have the story today, and it's another lumbar story. This one in particular, I talked about on MMT Insiders, my online mentoring group. And she was a patient who was the wife of an old colleague of mine, a former coworker, a really good old school manual therapist. I mean, this guy, he was very, very always really aggressive with his manipulations. He taught me the old, I used to call it the sacral bomb. I don't know if you've ever if you know what this one is, but it's like you have like a patient, you get into a like back to back and you interlock your arms at the elbow,
Oh, yeah.
and then you hip hinge and then you like get the patient on you so that you're like fully supporting them, and you
Yes,
kind of jump up and down so it distracts their sacrum because you're like sacrum to sacrum or something. Do you know that one?
I do. I've never done it, but I know of it.
Yeah, well, I'm not exactly the biggest guy in the world, so I have to like pick and choose, who I did that to. But I've done it a couple times. He did it to me. Um, but anyway, yeah, he's a really good Syriax trained manual therapist, among other things. So he definitely knew his manual therapy. So he referred me his wife, and she had just had a TKA, and he was going to what he called really average or terrible PT. It was a pops. They basically somehow packaged PT with the surgery, which I'm not even necessarily sure if it's legal, right? Like you just like, oh yeah, it's already packaged in, so you just have to come here. Like I don't know. I've never heard of a package like that. Package deal, like you get surgery and you get like 20 PTs thrown in or something. I don't know how that works. But anyway, he didn't like the PT. The wife didn't really like the PT. And after several visits, they ended up doing pro knee hang. And this was the left knee because she was already missing. I think flexion was not the big concern, but she was probably missing at least 20 degrees of extension. And that was probably even prior to the total knee arthroplasty. So with a pro knee hang, which is not my favorite test or not my favorite, long duration, low load stretch.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
No.
yeah. After that visit, several hours later, she came down with severe sciatic like symptoms.
Mm.
And he contacted me saying, he tried everything he could think of. So he trusts me to take a look at her. So I was kind of expecting um, before this, like in my mind, that it was going to be the same side. So when she walks in, she's walking with a cane. Her left knee, it appears to be antalgic gait, but it's her left knee really didn't hurt. It was really just very stiff. She didn't have terminal knee extension. She was still missing about 20 degrees. She was missing some knee flexion too, but she was also shifted to the left, which I wasn't expecting. I was kind of expecting that she would be shifted to the right. It'd be some kind of lumbar loading issue. I would just laterally shift it to the left, and magically her knee would get better too. Like that's kind of like the home run that I was thinking to really impress my former colleague. Um, but it turns out that it was her right leg, and it wasn't lumbar per se. At least her complaint was mostly around her hip joint. So he said, I thought it was bursitis. I tried to do a lot of long axis distractions, and it just made it. It didn't make it better or make it worse. She said the only thing that made it better was doing a lot of knees to chest. But for me, when it, when it's a hip pain or any kind of lower quarter, knees to chest may temporarily relieve it, but I think that it's kind of making it worse. At least it doesn't restore the ability to accept load. So I tried loading it first, and she was very tender around like the greater trochanter. Um, but I tried to describe to my colleague who was probably not the biggest fan of pain science, if even ever he came across it before he retired. But I did send them both Greg Lehman's book, and that's like one of the things that I do when someone schedules an appointment with me, and she really felt a lot better about her pain. And I asked her husband, I said, "Hey, what do you think of that book?" And he said it was like my worst nightmare. Um, so he didn't really enjoy it, but it immediately put her at ease. And I try, I described to them both that I don't think it's a bursitis, especially because one of the first techniques I tried, because she really couldn't weight bear very well due to her left knee not having good extension. Um, I tried just like a rotation mobilization where I laid her on her right side, which at first was painful until I started rotating her trunk the opposite way. So I was loading the right side and gapping the left side according to the patterns that I teach. So after several sets of this, she was completely pain free. Her gait was no longer antalgic, but it still looked odd just because of her lack of left knee motion. Uh, at the end of that visit, I also said, "Hey, you know what? I don't want you to do pro knee hang. I want you to use this product that I sell with, I co-sell with my future modern post-op rehab collaborator, Dr. Dennis Trubig, the knee terminator. It just, two straps that go over the knee so you can actually stretch it in sitting as opposed to the pro knee hang. It's a much shorter lever, much more comfortable. So she thought that was better. She was really, really happy. I gave her side glides. She was able to tolerate side glides in standing. After the rotations, after that first visit, I thought, oh, this is going to be great. She's just basically going to come back for only knee rehab because she also wanted to switch her knee rehab away from the pops. So then she contacts me somewhere between the first and second visit, of which we had maybe 3 or 4 days in between, and said, the pain came back after 2 days, and I don't think the exercises are working. So she comes back, and I checked the exercise. She was doing the side glides, but she wasn't quite going to end range. I was able to get her pain free again, and I said, "Hey, look, I think that just there's something else you're doing. That what else are you doing throughout the day if these side glides relieve it, and especially if you're able to go from like an 8 out of 10 constant pain to intermittent pain and completely abolished pain for 2 days. Like for me, a rapid responder is like if someone can have their pain relieved for hours, they're probably a rapid responder. And I always tell people if your pain relief is maybe like seconds or minutes and it comes back despite your and a therapist's best efforts, and that's more of a difficult case. But literally, if your pain was gone for 2 days and it was constant before, then we know that you're probably doing something to negate the effects of the resets. So it turns out that she also, excuse me, she also said that she likes to crochet and she sits for like 5 or 6 hours a day, and that's before she actually watches TV with her husband at night. So I said,
Hmm.
all right, well, let's get you a standing workstation, like why don't you try to crochet in standing and try to do the side glides more often. I want you to avoid prolonged sitting. All right. So she goes home again, very hopeful, pain free. This time the pain comes back after maybe 2 or 3 days again. Um, now the side glides aren't working. So she says, I think I'm going to go back to the doctor. And her husband says, I think I'm going to go back to the surgeon. But the surgeon recommended then she goes sees a physiatrist. The physiatrist wants to give her like a spinal or something like that, some sort of injection. It didn't really, it kind of relieved her pain. And then he says, okay, then I want you to do these press ups. So she goes home and she does press ups, whereas previously her directional preference was side glides because she had a lack of ability to load the right side. She tells me that these press ups that she's doing is making her worse.
Mm.
So then her husband calls or she calls the doctor and they get the PA and the PA says, okay, discontinue this. And she's like, well, if you can believe this, what he's saying now is just to do the side glides because he basically just like emailed her a picture of side glides.
Oh, nice.
So after that, she gets mad and she comes back to me. So I'm like, okay, well, let's do this all over again. I do the rotations, I do the side glides, I have to add some isometric, some other kind of fancy stuff. She is again 100% pain free. So, it's quite a roller coaster because she keeps on going from really, really happy that she can be pain free as soon as she leaves with me and during the visit to somehow she can't maintain it.
Yeah.
Um, the next visit, again, it was like 100% better for about a day and a half, but this time I started adding a lot of walking. Hey, you know what? Let's start, really going on those like 2 10-minute walks a day to break up that prolonged sitting. I know you're still crocheting. You're probably sitting longer than you think, so let's break that up. On the first walk went well. The second walk on day two, it somehow makes her worse. So she comes in again, and then I look at her, and then because her gait was a little bit more stable, and her knee was slowly getting better, I realized, oh, she has a Trendelenburg gait. And so on the right side, not the left side. So she's literally, every time she weight bears on the right, she's unloading with every step. And that's probably negating the effects of the side glide. So
Mm.
I test her glute med. It's really weak. The left side's actually stronger, even though she had a total knee arthroplasty on that side. I give her some glute med strengthening. So then for the next couple of days, walking is better. But then again, she comes back and it's, all her hip pain is back, but not quite as bad. She's getting really frustrated at this point. So I just said, again, I think you're doing something. You're doing something. And then her husband sends me, this is how she's doing the knee terminator at night. So she had bought a lumbar support from me, but she was sitting with the lumbar support in in long sit, using the knee terminator,
Ah,
and it was in a couch that was like a bucket seat, so her hips were lower.
so basically like a prolonged slump test.
Yes, like a prolonged slump. And I don't know how long she was doing that, probably like 2 or 3 times a day, but for the duration of the passive knee stretch. So I said, okay, I need you to do this on a more upright chair. Plus, I'm actually going to tape your spine. And again, between like the lumbar support and the spinal taping in an anterior pelvic tilt, these are things that I used to do for like so many kind of what Mackenzie would call posterior derangement patients, but I haven't done since I just basically adopted, 2 walks a day, more frequent movement. I always say, oh yeah, I don't correct posture anymore. But this was the most flexion sensitive patient I have come across in so long, probably over 10 years. So
Wow.
finally, after the lumbar taping and after the, you know, breaking up the knee terminator, long duration, low load stretching, finally, she was able to maintain a completely pain free state. But it took a while.
Yeah. But just
Yeah.
digging and digging, and like you said, people don't even realize sometimes what they might be doing that contributes because it may not bother them in the moment. Yeah,
Right.
but from a position or activity, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and the sitting didn't typically bother her. Sleeping bothered her, or being upright bothered her. But yeah, she didn't, especially while she was crocheting and probably really enjoying it because it's one of her favorite things to do. That in and itself is a distraction, and not a joint distraction, but a mental distraction,
Right,
right?
right.
Yeah.
Was
So
that?
yeah, there
Did
were a
you ever
lot of
do like the
negatives, a lot of things,
LCAP
as Greg
test
would
with
say,
her?
filling up the cup there.
Did you ever do the LCAP test with her?
I did, but I just wasn't sure like how well she would do, just because of like the left side
Yeah.
was still missing some. It's not like her gait was perfect, but I didn't even bother with the LCAP just because her glute med was so weak like it was barely a 3 on the right side.
Gotcha.
But I think it was more inhibition because that strength came back, or at least it was like maybe a 4 by the time she left and her Trendelenburg gait had gone away. So I don't really know if it was weakness or inhibition. I mean, I would say it was inhibition if it kind of changed that quickly. But excuse me, in terms of the LCAP, because she couldn't even really stand evenly, I don't know how if I that's probably why I
Gotcha.
didn't test it. All right, so where can people find you, Andrew?
Oh, people can find me on Twitter and Instagram at a Rothschild PT, and of course, Modern Rehab Mastery and Modern Patient Education.
All right. Well, if you enjoy Untold Physio Stories, make sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you have an interesting physio failure or interesting case, make sure to reach out to us on social media and get on the podcast. Untold Physio Stories is now sponsored by MyPT Insurance. Insurance just got easier. Through continued research, MyPT Insurance has crafted a policy that is economical and provides you with the peace of mind you need. Your extensive education, training, and experience as a PT allows you to assist clients in achieving their personal health goals. By practicing without individual professional liability insurance, you could be placing your career and future finances at risk. Whether you're a student, self-employed, or employed with a company, MyPT Insurance is here to provide affordable insurance coverage while protecting you and your patients. MyPT Insurance's plan also includes mobile coverage, which means it follows you wherever you work in the United States. Employed rates and self-employed rates are available. Visit myptinsurance.com/edge to sign up today.